Well, hey there, entrepreneurs. Welcome to 30 days of the Canon M50. If you haven't already downloaded the free PDF guide on the first video, that's just about a minute long, make sure you go back to the beginning of the series, get that free PDF on the best settings for video for the Canon M50. But otherwise, let's jump into today's video. So already in this series, we have talked about how the Canon M50 is able to do 4K video, that you could do time-lapse features, and all kinds of stuff like that. But one of the great things that Canon also added was the ability to do slow motion videos. Now, this is another one of those things where Canon has decided that they're going to just keep chopping and punching and just judo chop straight to the throat, the camera, and they have once again done some stuff when it comes to this feature. So let's talk about it. So the slow motion feature on the Canon M50 is, I guess, in Canon's world, it's at the beginner stage, which is 720p, 120 frames per second, even though many cameras out there now record 1080p, which is full HD video in 120 frames per second. It's not that the camera possibly couldn't do it, but this is just one of those things where Canon artificially crips the camera once again. However, you can still get usable footage that if nobody knows what you're using or what you're recording with it, even if they do, they are not paying attention to it. Oh, well, that looks this way or that way. Most people have no idea, and they have to ask you to figure it out. And it's only those people that are, zooming in to 400, percent and all that other stuff that you really are able to see the issues when it comes to that. Otherwise, don't worry about it, because you can also do some decent slow motion in 1080p, 60 frames per second. But specifically, the high frame rate that the Canon M50 has, the 720p and 120 frames per second to really get super slow-mo video, is available, but you must be in the movie mode. So let's talk about a couple things to know about that. One thing is that there will be no audio. You won't be able to hear anything. So with the 1080p 60, you can record that just like a video here, and then you can eventually slow that down if you want. But you have every part of that video file to use as you see fit. So if you want to take the audio away, you can. Or if you want to leave it in for, oh no, if you want to add that in, you can do that. There will be no sound if you're using a 720p, 120 frames per second slow motion feature on the M50. Another thing is that they also turned off the autofocus. Why, thank you, Canon. We didn't want to use that anyway. But so you'll have to manually focus whatever it is or get it in focus already. Sometimes you want to have a very shallow depth of field or just only a small area of something in focus. A deeper depth of field will have more area in focus. So if you're going to be having to do manual focus, and maybe you're going to spin a coin, and we'll do that and do some manual focus about that, then with using that. But otherwise, you want more space, so wherever that coin is going to be in focus versus just only when it's within this small space or something like that. So just open up the aperture a little bit more, make sure or close it down in the proper technological terms, whatever, make the number bigger. So you got a deeper depth of field, and that way you're able to actually have more space in focus, more room to work with or whatever. And it's just a thing. But otherwise, let's jump into the camera and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, quick settings guide here. You need to be in the movie mode or you won't see these settings. In that first menu, you want to click movie recording quality. Then from there, you want to hit high frame rate and enable that. And you'll see that give you just a quick option and then hit set. So once we have our settings set up, you want your shutter speed to 60 frames per second if that's what you're intending to do, following that 180-degree shutter rule. So you want to put it over 1/125 for the shutter speed. Typically, you want your f-stop or that f2.0 or whatever your number may be. You want that to be as low as possible. And then you want to adjust for the ISO as needed. But those are the settings. And just look at the video that I did on proper exposure if you're wanting to know, how do you exactly set those and things like that. So same with the 120 frames per second, whatever that number is, the frames per second, just double it as best as you can on the shutter speed. So that put us over at 1/250 of a second. So just 250, and then have that F number as low as you can with your lens. And then you want to adjust your ISO and make it higher to adjust for the brightness, because this will make it typically a darker shot. And if you can, use a prime lens so you can get the best low light possible. And then let's just go ahead and jump into kind of what that looks like if you were going to use a kit lens. So this is a regular 1080p 60 frames per second video, but it's peach cobbler that I just had pulled out the oven, and I just wanted to see what it looked like to catch those bubbles, so let's slow that down. Okay, same clip here, 60 frames per second, slowed down by 50%, and so I can still use autofocus on this, or I can switch and do manual focus to specifically focus in on certain parts of the pie versus other parts. Okay, so this is me baking the peaches, and I just took the regular kit lens and I put it inside the pot. Now, granted, this is technically low light. I didn't have any counter lights or anything like that on, so any reflectiveness is coming from the pot sides and just a regular kitchen light. And so you can see there's a lot more noise in the shot, but if I probably put a prime lens on there, it would be able to pull in more light and it wouldn't be as bad. But otherwise, as far as the slow motion, it would be fine. However, the fact that this is the kit lens, it does not get a whole lot of details that are captured with the low light abilities, or as wide as the aperture could be opened up. But here's one of an outdoor shot, 720p, 120 frames per second, and so it still will have a little bit more noise than it typically would, but otherwise it's okay. But if we look here, this is a 1080p shot, and then you slow that down. It does seem to be a little bit more clear. You get less noise, but otherwise it's not too bad for 1080p 60. Where are you from?
Gateway Disc Sports, Maryland Heights, Missouri.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So those are just the basic functions of how to actually use it. I've used this just to test when I was making a peach cobbler, and I just wanted to see if I'm looking already in a dark space, because you're having to have that shutter speed so high, the frame rate is already high, and so it will be a darker image. So I'll have to raise the ISO. I have, some light and reflection bouncing off of the sides of the pot, and I just wanted to see what I could get. So, just a small clip of something here or there, having that baked in, and then you can, change some of those things in editing and make it a little bit better. Then you can get really great usable footage, even though it is 720p. It'll be upscaled because the rest of your video will probably be 1080p or 4K or something like that. But blending these things in the middle of whatever it is that you're already doing, most people aren't going to know. It's more of just something that the manufacturer decided to do, but using your creative skills, your ability, and your creativity, you can get around it. But otherwise, that's all there really is to getting some slow motion video with the high frame rate feature on the M50.